publisher of its publication, The Western Journal. A graduate of the University of Washington, he is the founder of Citizens United and a past executive director of Young America's Foundation, where he oversaw the preservation and expansion of the Reagan Ranch. He served as advisor to the presidential campaigns of George W. Bush, Bob Dole, Steve Forbes, and Mike Huckabee. Mr. Brown has written for numerous publications, including Human Events, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the Washington Times, and he is a frequent guest on television, including on Fox News' Tucker Carlson Tonight, the ABC's Primetime, and NBC's Today Show. He is author or co-author of 6 books, including Prince Albert, The Life and Lies of Al Gore, Slick Willie, Why America Cannot Trust Bill Clinton, and most recently, Big Tech Tyrants, How Silicon Valley's Stealth Practices Addict Teens, Silence Speech, and Steal Your Privacy. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Floyd Brown.
Thank you. You know, before I get started here, I just want to say how wonderful it is to be back at Hillsdale College. I have been an admirer of Hillsdale for so many years, and I really admire them for one reason, and that is their continued commitment to timeless principles, and I'm really honored to join with all of you today. So in the spring of 2019, I got into an argument with a member of the executive team at Western Journal. And we had been experimenting with new ways to use Facebook's marketing in e-commerce. And you know, I have 85 employees at Liftable Media, and most of them are younger than me. I'm the oldest guy in the building. And they know so much more than I do about Facebook. And in particular, this young man I was arguing with, his name's Ford Jordan, we had a dispute, and it was really over one sentence. Ford came into my office and he said, you know, I can use Facebook to predict when a woman will get pregnant. And I said, what? I mean, I was incredulous. Don't tell me that, Ford. He said, no, I can predict using Facebook's marketing algorithms when a woman will get pregnant. And I said, that can't be true. That absolutely just sounds crazy. Well, our argument ended there, but about 4 months later, it became public that Facebook had been out vacuuming up data from ovulation apps. You know what ovulation apps are? These are applications that women have on their smartphones, women usually that are trying to get pregnant, and they enter their sexual cycle or their menstrual cycle into the app, and they check their temperature every day. And the whole purpose of the app is telling you when's the perfect time to have sex so that you can get pregnant. And Facebook was buying this data from several of these apps. So I was the one who lost the argument, obviously, because the truth was, using Facebook data, Ford Jordan could predict and could market to women that were going to get pregnant. Now, my first simple question to you today is, do you think the women that were using those apps with their most private details, do you think the women understood when they clicked that terms of service button, when they downloaded that app to their smartphone? Do you think any of them understood that that data was going to be marketed? It was going to be sold to others, and it would be part of the nexus used by Facebook to connect with their other data in order to enhance a marketing profile so that people could serve them ads. I doubt it. I doubt it in the same way that most people don't ever read the terms of service for different apps that they download. I mean, did you read the terms of service of the Google Maps app? Or did you read the terms of service of the Facebook app? Or the Yelp app? Or any of these apps that might currently be on your smartphone? Chances are you didn't. Most of us don't. And we find these little smartphones to be so unbelievably productive in our lives. You know, the truth is that when Gene Roddenberry first had Star Trek and he had these little communicators, I mean, what we have today is so much more amazing than anything that they had back then, and even in his grandest imagination probably wouldn't have understood all of the enhancements to productivity that came as a result of this little device called the smartphone. So our nation's productivity may have exploded, but there's also a number of very serious and very important things I want to talk about that follow on from all of us using these little devices called smartphones. So I'm often asked, why did you write the book, Big Tech Tyrants? And really the reason I wrote it was because I've had a front row seat to watch the evolution of these different technologies as they've moved along. Facebook opened to the public in 2007, 2008, and we were very early to the whole Facebook revolution. We launched our publication called Western Journalism at the time. It's now called Western Journal. And we were serving news into that Facebook infrastructure early on. And as a result, we grew amazingly. I mean, the truth is we were able to use that very productively. So I'd say the most important reason I wrote the book is because most Americans really don't understand the threat of this technology. And they don't understand that the threat was, the technology was developed specifically to be addictive. And they also don't understand that in addition to being addictive, much of big tech is actually used to brainwash users. I know Dr. Robert Epstein's going to be here tonight to speak to you, and he has done much really great work in this area about how these technologies are actually used to brainwash and change the ideas of people that are using them. And, you know, the other thing I think that's important to understand is that many people have been the victims of scams. They've been ripped off, their identity's been stolen, and much of that has been done as a result of big tech. So why don't we start with addiction. How does big tech addict people? Now, a lot of us, in fact, how many of you know somebody that's addicted to technology and addicted to their smartphone? Okay, almost every hand in this room's raised. I particularly like this story because this is about a woman who was looking at her smartphone and she walked off of a cliff. And she was stuck there for 13 hours. She was so addicted to her smartphone that she didn't see a cliff in front of her. Now, the end of the story was pretty good because she lived. But there's many people that have died because they walk into traffic, they do all kinds of other crazy things. They are in auto accidents, all because of this unbelievable addiction to their smartphones. But the truth is, it's children that suffer most. Children really bear the brunt of this. I don't know how many of you know the story of Tyler Clemente, but Tyler was a student at Rutgers University, New Brunswick, and he jumped to his death from the George Washington Bridge at the age of 18 back in 2010. And the reason that he jumped to his death was because his roommate had used a webcam in the dorm room, and he'd used another computer from another student, and they had filmed surreptitiously Tyler kissing another boy. And he was so distraught by this because they turned around and they posted the video of that kiss on social media. And so he jumped to his death. He killed himself because of social media. Or the story of Phoebe Prince. She hanged herself after 9 teenagers harassed her for months on social media. See, social media, it magnifies and it increases the effects of bullying, especially on children. It's really interesting that psychologists and psychiatrists that have been studying this have actually coined a term as a result of it. It's called Facebook depression. And it really has to do with we see others' lives, and they're for example, they're posting pictures of themselves on the beach in Hawaii. We think, wow, what a great life. But what they don't post are the pictures that took to get to Hawaii. Let's say they had to shovel out their driveway of snow, and it took 2 hours to shovel that snow so they could back out of the driveway and get to the airport. You never see the bad in life on Facebook. People only post the most beautiful things. I mean, a lot of people like to post pictures of meals that they've eaten. Well, the meals are always at high-end restaurants. It's always the best meal you've ever seen. And they never post a picture of oatmeal that they had that morning for breakfast. The truth is it makes you have a distorted picture about the lives of others, and so as a result, people that use a lot of social media, people that spend a lot of time on social media, suffer depression as a result of it. It's not healthy. So there's been a number of studies of how it actually can change the brains of teens that spend a lot of time on social media. It's very, very, very addictive. And, most people don't realize that now, by the age of 4, most children can use a keyboard. Well, I'm a baby boomer. I'll admit it. Okay, boomer. The truth is, I learned how to use a typewriter when I was in high school. And the thought that by 4, most children can use a keyboard, to me, is just astounding. By age 7, most children have their own mobile phone. As early as 6, most children have seen online pornography. And, the truth is that we talk about this a lot in working online. The truth is that pornography is the profit engine of big tech, and it's the profit engine of many of the big tech companies. I mean, for example, we could do an extended discussion on the page, on the website called Backpage, which is now shut down. It was shut down by the federal government because it was a place where they were trafficking children, and there was prostitution involved, and a lot of other things. Routinely, Google made $1 billion a year off of Backpage. And in fact, the reason Backpage wasn't shut down earlier was because Google had actually been helping to fund the defense of Backpage. So when you look behind the veil of a lot of these companies, what you'll find is that many of them are very happy to get people addicted to pornography because they become the kind of launch pad to move you on to pornography. The truth is that by 10, most children are watching an inordinate amount of videos on Facebook and YouTube. By 11 or 12, many of them have their own Facebook pages, even though they have to lie to get them, because through the terms of service, they're not old enough to have their own Facebook page, but they have them anyway. And by 12, many are living in a virtual world. Many are streaming video online. And in fact, many of them are actually stripping naked for these videos. So children, and this is what makes it so unbelievably difficult, children just don't understand the consequences of this kind of behavior. They don't understand how it's going to affect them later in life. They don't understand the follow-on effects of too much media consumption. And it isn't surprising that all of the different notifications and beeps and buzzes that you have on your smartphone, those were all developed by gaming companies. So Silicon Valley went to Las Vegas, they went to the gaming industry, and they studied the way gamblers get addicted to slot machines. And they use that technology in the smartphones in order to addict you to that smartphone. So it's really all intended to increase your time on that smartphone. Everything is to pull you in. I understand it. I know all of the tricks that they use, and I'm still addicted to the darn thing. I mean, it's hard to pick up a phone and not spend time on it because it's, giving you all this input and it's speaking to your brain, and it's, it's like, I had it explained to me like this once. All of us know that when we eat sugar, it's not good for us, right? But all of this feedback from our smartphones is like sugar on the brain. It boosts our endorphins, and it gets us caught up in this world that is very addictive. And it can have long-term psychological impacts. So, big tech, the other thing that they do is they silence speech. Now, big tech, when I first started giving this talk, when I actually first wrote my book on big tech tyrants, we hadn't lived through the 2020 election. So people, now I think are more cognizant, they're more understanding of the way big tech has been manipulated to control speech and control ideas. But a couple of years ago, in the 2018 cycle, for example, they were already very actively engaged in this, but most people didn't understand it. And the truth is that, I'm not surprised that even President Trump, who is really great at using social media, in the end found that these particular companies are impossible to beat. So one of the things I like to talk about is the tale of two candidates from 2018. So these were two really interesting candidates of the 2018 cycle. Both were articulate females. Both had parents that were born abroad. So they were both from immigrant families. They were both born in the 1980s, so they were younger, they were new, they were, potential leaders of the future. And both had graduated from prestigious colleges. So they were very similar. In a lot of ways, you would probably judge these two candidates as being quite similar. Well, big tech didn't see it that way. Big tech thought these candidates are polar opposites. So they treated these two women completely differently. polar opposite treatment. So candidate A had her videos banned by Facebook, and they were suppressed by YouTube. Candidate B became an immediate social media star, and her videos were boosted until they had millions and millions of views. Candidate A's banned video is the story of her family escaping from the killing fields in Cambodia. It's a very compelling story. Candidate B posted many videos that were viewed millions of times. So candidate A effectively had her ability to reach people online restricted. While candidate B was boosted and her content was everywhere, it brought her donors from around the country, and she became one of the top online influencers. So while you would think these two candidates were very similar, big tech treated them absolutely polar opposite. So I'd like to show you a video here. And as you can see, it is currently, even to this day, suppressed. And this is the video of Elizabeth Heng.
In Cambodia, under Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge, being young and single often meant a gruesome life and likely death. They approached my father, and in order to save his life, he said he was about to be married. They asked him, to whom? He pointed to the prettiest girl that he saw, having never spoken to her before. The soldiers approached her, and she said yes. They got married the very next day. 41 years later, they're still the happiest couple I know. Great things can come from great adversity. Fresno's home, but America's booming economy never made it to our district. Empty buildings, homeless, desperate people. Our congressional district is one of the very poorest in America. For 14 years, we've been represented in Congress by a nice man, Jim Costa, but so little has changed. Look around. This is what we can still expect to see 14 years from now, unless we plan for a better future. When we were young, my mother picked up coins off the floor at the mall to buy us a Happy Meal when we did well in school. They worked long, long hours at the local grocery store they still run. All that they made, they saved for our education.
Elizabeth is the hardest working student I have had in my 33-year teaching career, and she is the first Sunnyside High School graduate to have earned her way into Stanford University.
Studying at Stanford wasn't enough. Elizabeth was also elected student body president. Next came an MBA from Yale. She spent time on the staff of respected U.S. Congressman Ed Royce in Washington, learning why most of the time in D.C., nothing happens. Nothing. We've given Jim Costa 14 years to bring us a better life. Has it worked? In those same 14 years, Elizabeth Heng excelled in high school, graduated Stanford, was elected student body president there, got her MBA from Yale, learned what's wrong with DC, helped her brother start a very successful business, then turned her attention toward making our lives better. Same 14 years. Which person is most likely to improve our future?
I'm 33. I have the energy and drive to bring us a better future. Not just talk about it, do it. Break the logjam and restore our water infrastructure. Reform immigration the right way. Vastly improve our education system so more of us can go to great schools. Everyone told me that I'd never go to Stanford or Yale or work for Congress. Just like they tell you that our homes and our cities will never get better. Everyone is wrong. Great things can come from great adversity. I'm Elizabeth Hang, and I approve this message.
So Elizabeth Hang is the candidate number one in this story of suppression. And you probably can all guess why she was so suppressed by social media. She was suppressed because she dared to tell the story of what her family had experienced in the killing fields of Cambodia. Because that's not acceptable. And it's not part of the narrative that is acceptable to big tech. And so here's candidate B. Okay? The one that saw all of her content boosted. She became instantly known all across the country. She did go to a prestigious college, but not nearly as prestigious as Stanford and Yale, in my opinion. But you can see, big tech was able to kill the candidacy of Elizabeth Hang, and they literally made AOC who she is. But yet, if you look at those candidates beforehand, they're very similar in a lot of ways. The only difference is one was a conservative and one is an outlandishly far-left socialist. And so big tech promoted one and big tech suppressed the other. And that's happening all the time, all the time. So I know this from firsthand experience. I lived through this myself with our own company. The truth is, this is the algorithm change impact on publishers. So in 2016, Liftable Media had content seen in the Facebook news feed 11 billion times. That led to over 150 billion impressions on our website. But once Donald Trump was elected, and once big tech turned to Mark Zuckerberg and said, you know, you're the reason Donald Trump was elected. You allowed him free reign on your Facebook platform. And you allowed him to communicate his message to people on Facebook unhindered. You've got to stop that. And Mark Zuckerberg snapped into line, just like all of the other big tech companies had, and began to progressively suppress more and more content online. So, you know, there's so many examples of this. I could just talk about this forever. But one I like to give is just go home later and Google the name Franklin Graham. Okay? And most of us know who Franklin Graham is. He's the son of Billy Graham, the great evangelist, probably the most well-known evangelist in the history of the country. And he's stepped into his father's shoes. He runs Samaritan's Purse, which is a wonderful charity. He has, you know, speaks all over the world, travels all over the world. But if you actually Google him, what you'll find is that Franklin Graham is somebody to be feared, hated. I think the last time I Googled him, the first article that came up from MSNBC was 10,000 Christian leaders call on Franklin Graham to resign because of his support for Donald Trump. There is a consistency in what they're doing with these big tech platforms, and everything they do is targeted at Christians, it's targeted at pro-lifers, it's targeted at conservatives. And it's uniform across the board. This is just about the impact on publishers. What we found from algorithm changes is that Breitbart, Town Hall, Daily Caller, Western Journal that I run, we were all, you know, some of the most oppressed publishers online. We came in and one day saw our Facebook traffic drop a full 90%. 100%, 90. The next day we were getting 10% of the normal traffic. And the only thing that had changed was Donald Trump was president. But it didn't just affect publishers. Yes, conservative publishers were impacted, but it also affected Republican politicians. So while Facebook will say, well, we just decided to make the platform less political, and so you should expect that politics isn't going to be as widely disseminated. This is the statistics on the change for Republican members of Congress compared to Democrat members of Congress. Republicans saw their Facebook interaction go down 37%, while Democrats only went down 27%. And in the Senate, it was even worse, with Republican senators' interactions on Facebook falling a full 44%, while Democratic senators only saw their engagement fall by 31%. So I really could talk about the impact of these algorithms on conservatives and pro-lifers and Christians for hours, but I want to get to one of the most important issues I think that we face, and that is your privacy. I started with the discussion with the use of ovulation apps data being pulled into Facebook, but what you really need to understand is most people think, I know that when I'm on the Facebook app, they're going to know what I'm clicking and what I'm reading. But to really understand it, you've got to understand that is just the beginning of it. And then I've had other people say, well, I don't have Facebook. So they don't track me. I don't have Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. Wrong. Facebook tracks every American, every single American. You don't have to have a Facebook account to be tracked by Facebook. The truth is that Facebook tracks everyone. And let me tell you how they do it. See, the first layer of the Facebook data was they sucked in every bit of name, address, email, telephone numbers. They sucked in all the data they could find on all Americans from the very beginning. And then they created a nexus with that data between your IP address, or a lot of people have several IP addresses, to find out how you were accessing content online. And then, of course, yes, if you are a member of Facebook and you've given them either your cell phone number or your email address to become a member of Facebook, they tie all of that in with your Facebook activity. But they're actually tracking all Americans. And it's really important to understand their business model on why they track all Americans. And the reason they track all Americans is because when you go to, some website, there's a good chance the ad on that website is being served by Facebook. Same with Google. It's being served by Google. So it doesn't matter if you have a Facebook account. Now, it does greatly enhance their ability to track you if you do have a Facebook account. And it'll even enhance more their ability to track you if you use the Facebook app on your phone, which, frankly, I think is a piece of spyware. But let's go through it. This is Antonio Garcia Martinez. And he was really the man behind the product of Facebook that really started this super invasion of privacy. So in the spring of 2013, he sold Facebook on a new plan. And really, it has echoes of B.F. Skinner, but Facebook now collects 1,700 data points on every American. Not every Facebook user, they collect it on every American. And then this data is compared across platforms to allow what they call the creation of custom audiences. And this is what made Facebook so unbelievably profitable. The truth is that Facebook makes about $212 for every North American user. Now, I know the reason that they give you the data like that is because they don't want you to know how profitable those USA users are, because that's their most profitable set of users. So they kind of blend it with Mexico and Canada and all of North America. And it's a very, very profitable company because they've created this product called custom audiences. And what custom audiences does is it allows businesses to find people that have the psychographic blueprint similar to their current best customers. So a business takes their current customer list, and this is part of why Facebook has so much data, because I bet you didn't realize the businesses you do business with are uploading their customer data to Facebook, but they are. So they upload their customer list to Facebook, and they say to Facebook, find me people that think and act like this customer list I have. And so as a result of that, Facebook's algorithms begin spinning and spinning and spinning, and they target like a rifle other people that think like their current customers. And companies will pay through the nose for that kind of enhanced marketing data. So that's what Mr. Martinez was able to develop. And it was the first time that marketers could find people on the platform exactly like their very best customers. And it was extremely profitable. And Google, I need to talk about Google. Google has the very same product. So whether you're working with Facebook or you're working with Google, they're collecting identical troves of information about you. So what do Google and Facebook know about you? Well, they know a lot. The first thing we all know, they know what sites you're visiting. They know what kind of links you click on regularly. And they know when you switch from private to public mode. Some of you do have, use some of your privacy settings. A lot of people don't use any of them, but if you do and you go to incognito or private mode, they know when you switch in and out of it and what you're doing when you switch in and out of it. They know what videos you watch partially. They know what videos you watch to the very end. They know how long you've been on that video. And they know how quickly you move from page to page, so they know, what content actually you really find interesting because you're spending time there. Maybe you're reading. They know exactly where you are on the page. Most people don't understand that. So if you open an article and you read the first paragraph, they know, well, they've read the first paragraph. If you read it all the way to the end, they know that. They know exactly what you're interested in because of it. So, they know how quickly you move from page to page. They know where you are physically when you, like where your physical location is. So they know that we're in this room, okay? They know, those of us who traveled from around the country, they know that Floyd Brown traveled from Phoenix to Hillsdale College. They know that about me. And so now they'll be able to put that into my psychographic profile. Now, why in the world would he go to Hillsdale College? What is it about Hillsdale that Floyd Brown really wanted to climb on an airplane and go all the way to Hillsdale? Well, they know why. And they build these psychographic profiles on you. So the truth is that they know when you consume content and what kind of content you consume at home. If you go to Starbucks and consume content, if you're on the go and you consume content, if you're at work and you consume content, they know the different types of content you consume in these different places. So they know the names of the people that you're connecting with online. They know what facial expressions you have. And yes, that does include the use of your video cam. Why do you think it's so difficult to buy a computer without a video cam these days? It's almost impossible. I have one, but you have to really work hard to get a computer without a video cam. And yes, they know what your facial expressions are. They know how you react to different things. So one of the first things that I encourage people to do is get a cover for their video cam. You can order them online. They're like $3.99, and you slap it on your computer, and then you close off that video cam, and then they can't use it because you have a physical barrier there. And it's one of the single most important privacy tools that I recommend. I'm going to give you a whole list of different privacy tools that you should have. But I encourage you, if you're looking for a computer, buy a computer without a webcam. You can always get a portable webcam, so you can do your Zoom call, and you can plug it in only when you use it, so it's not staring at you all the time and monitoring you all the time and looking at you all the time. So the truth is that they know your facial expressions. They know how your skin tone changes in different situations. They know what you're doing just before you decide to buy something. They know, when you leave a shopping cart and don't buy something. They know what you're doing when you buy something. They know what you're doing when you decide not to buy something. They're tracking all of this information, very granular information about every person. They know your political affiliations, and they know how active you are in politics. So one of the first bits of data that Facebook accumulated into its system was the voter database. So most voter databases are available publicly. If they're not available publicly in a state, they're often marketed by third parties. And so Facebook took the entire voter registration database of the country and ingested that into their Facebook system. So that was their first marker to know, how you react politically. And it's one of the most profitable parts of what they do, are serving these detailed ads to certain political constituencies. So anybody surprised by any of this yet? So when I really started digging into this, I have to admit, it's really scary. But they just track so many things. Where do you live? Where do you like to go? What are you going to do next? Where did you go to school? Do you keep in touch with people from your school? Are you single? Are you married? Do you want to change that? I mean, they know before your spouse that you want a divorce. They know what you're thinking. They know what you're looking at. And they know if you're questioning your sexuality. These are deep, dark secrets to a lot of people, but they know it. So they know what your birthday is, they know the birthday of your friends, they know about your current job, they know whether or not you want to change jobs, or if you're satisfied in your job, or if you're looking for another job. They know about the birth dates of your children, and they know what you like to do on the birthday of your children. So, and what did you spend money on? They just are tracking everything. This is one that I find particularly eerie. They know when you're going to die. They know all about your health. A lot of people now, wear different trackers to track their physical fitness and to, know how many steps they had, they took yesterday or the day before. And some of those monitors, monitor your pulse rate. And a lot of people will go online and they'll buy blood pressure cuffs. And those blood pressure cuffs will have apps that are attached to those blood pressure cuffs. And so you can, take your blood pressure and then the app is going to Bluetooth that data onto the app, and that's going to be sucked back down into Facebook, because one of the most profitable ways for these apps to make money is by selling your data. And in almost all of the terms of service, you have agreed to sell that data. So they know when you're going to die. They know intimate details about your health. If you're, using Google Calendars, they know when you're scheduled to go to your doctor. They know what you're doing, where you travel. So they have all of these different data points. But what they do that's most interesting is they cross-reference all of these data points to find people that are like you. So what you do not know can hurt you. And so I'd like to end by just talking a little bit about some of the tools you can use to protect yourself and to try and just blunt this invasive behavior of these different tech giants. Because it's important to understand you are the product, not the product they're giving you. So I encourage everybody, quit as much big tech as you can. I have a white paper on news. Most of you probably will have consumed at least 12,000 articles of online news in the last year. Some of you much, much more than that. The truth is that probably the content of those 12,000 articles that you read will have virtually no impact on your lifestyle if you didn't know that information. Probably wouldn't change your life one bit. So, it's okay to read a physical book. It's okay to read a magazine article from a physical magazine. It's okay to not consume all of your content on these platforms. They have convinced us that, I don't need to subscribe to a magazine anymore because I can just read that stuff for free online. It's not free. You're giving away your privacy in exchange for that free article. It's not free because you are the product, and what you're reading is the product. So quit big tech if you can. Most people will say, well, I would quit big tech if I could, but I can't do it. So let me just give you a few things you can do. Do not use Google products. Do not. If you have the Chrome browser, I want you to go home and delete it. Use the Foxfire browser. You'll still be tracked. There'll still be some tracking, but it's nothing like the Google's Chrome browser. Google's Chrome browser literally rapes its customers of all of their private data. And I don't use that word flippantly. Don't use Facebook. Don't use Twitter. And don't use the Instagram apps. Now, you can still visit Twitter. You can still visit Facebook. You can still visit Instagram. Just don't do it on their apps. A lot of people don't realize this. So one of the reasons that online news sites are so profitable is because of the Facebook app. Because people download the Facebook app and they don't realize, they think that the Facebook app is tracking them when they're on the Facebook app. No, the Facebook app is, the app is tracking you all the time. It's one of the reasons it's one of the biggest power hogs on your smartphone. So if you have the Facebook app, it's literally tracking everything you do all the time you do it. It knows what other sites you're going to. It is getting a detailed profile of you, even if you're not on the Facebook app. So delete that app immediately. And you can go to Facebook on a browser. You don't have to use their app to do it. You don't have to use the Twitter app. You don't have to use the Instagram app. You can do it without the apps and just do it in one of your browsers. And you'll have just doing that one thing will enhance your privacy dramatically. So use a secondary app to follow social media and to search online. You know, don't search at Google. If you're in a browser, go to Start Page. Start Page will give you Google search results right out of Google, but they won't track you the way Google will track you. And you know, DuckDuckGo is another one. Now, DuckDuckGo gives you Bing results from the search website that Microsoft has, Bing, but it's also another great app you can put on your phone and stop searching with Google. Now, your iPhone, Google pays Apple an astronomical amount of money so that when you search on the iPhone, you're searching in Google so that they can know more detailed about you. So if you have an iPhone, stop searching in Google, but use one of the other apps like DuckDuckGo. Or Superfeed. Superfeed is one of my favorites. Superfeed allows you to follow social media in a different app that isn't tracking you. So for example, one of the things I found the most frustrating during this last year was the Twitter suppression of Donald Trump. I wanted to know what Donald Trump was tweeting, right? And I couldn't get it on Twitter because Twitter would only give you a selection that they chose of Donald Trump's tweets on their actual platform. So Donald Trump's sitting there, you know, tweeting things out, and Twitter's suppressing him. So if you're on Twitter and you're trying to get what Donald Trump's tweeting, you cannot get it on the platform. But this app, Superfeed, if you followed the Donald Trump mini feed, you could actually see what he was saying on Twitter. And you weren't being tracked by Twitter. So, and Superfeed's available in the iOS store and in the Android store, and it's a great way to consume news without being tracked. You know, do not use Apple News, do not use Google News, do not use these big tech products because they're spyware. Enhanced tracking of everything you do and think and read. Please do not use Gmail. I implore you, don't use Gmail. Okay, when you use Gmail, they read your mail. They have total rights to read whatever you're emailing. And that's not just the emails that you send, it's also the emails that come to you from other people. They read everything. Now, they'll say, oh, well, we don't, you know, personally track. No, they know everything. So please use an email from a cable company, and the cable company will try and track you, but they're not very good at it. So, better yet, get yourself a secure service. I use one called protonmail.com. So Proton Mail is completely secure. They have their servers in a mountain somewhere in Switzerland, and they specialize in private email. So, people come up and ask me, well, what about Yahoo? Well, Yahoo tracks you too. It's owned by Verizon, and like a cable company, the cellular companies, aren't quite as good at tracking as Google is. They haven't refined the art as well, but still, I wouldn't use, products are not free. People get this idea, well, I have a free email, and I have this free, and I have that. No, you don't. You are the product. You're the product. So limit your time on your phone, limit the time consuming content online. I know these things are hard to do, and we love to watch it, but my last point there is the most important, and that is enjoy people directly. Talk to someone. Go have coffee with someone. Go to church. Meet people face to face. Don't text them. Talk to them. Don't be just online, but be a real human. And you will do a lot to protect yourself. Thank you, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We now have some time for Q&A, so if you have a question, please make your way to one of the microphones.
My favorite time is the question time, by the way. I used to be a radio talk show host, and I loved talking to the callers, so.
Thank you so much for coming. I was just wondering what made you trust some of these apps more than Google and Facebook and other things like that?
I'm sorry, I had a little trouble hearing you.
What makes you trust these apps instead of the other ones?
Oh, you mean Superfeed and DuckDuckGo? Because both of those apps were developed by privacy nuts in order to try and get you more privacy. Okay, that's the whole purpose of those apps. Like with Superfeed, if you want to just use it basically, you don't even create an account. Okay, the minute you create an account with a company, that's usually a marker that they're going to, start downloading data about you. So they all want you to create an account and get a password, and they want you to stay logged in all the time. Superfeed doesn't do that. DuckDuckGo, I don't believe, does that. So it's really much better privacy-wise if you don't log in. That's why I trust them.
Hi, I wanted to ask what the legality and veracity are of permissions, because when you said the Facebook thing about tracking, I checked mine, and it says that I have the location on only while app is in use. Is that true? Because, to be fair, this is a Google phone as well. So. So if you've actually physically gone and turned off your location tracking, then hopefully they're not tracking you. Okay, but most people never look into the privacy portions of their apps, and they use just the basic settings, which would be to track you.
We have time for one more question.
Hello, thank you so much for coming to our school. I was wondering, Google seems to be providing an excellent service by tailoring search results to us and having targeted ads. What is the actual harm besides just like us being a product in targeted ads and tailored searches?
Yeah, what's the actual harm? That's a good question. That's a really good question. And I talk about this question a lot with my son. Okay, my son's a millennial, and he says, I don't have anything to hide, so it's okay that they know everything about me. There's, I don't have anything to hide. But, you know, the truth is that I think I personally don't like people being in my brain like that. And yes, and the control elements, you know, the ability to serve me certain ads because they know that I'm going to click on that ad because they know the way I think and the way my mind works. So, you know, frankly, I've missed having, you know, highly customized ads that are tailored just for me. I haven't missed them. I haven't missed them. All they will make you do is probably consume more than you want to consume, spend more than you want to spend, and in the case of pornography, do things you probably wouldn't want to do online. So that's the harm.
Please join me in thanking Mr. Brown.